Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Professor Geek, and today we're going to discuss an argument that's been coming up in debates a lot. Most recently it's cropped up concerning Captain America and Wonder Woman, though it's been made about Superman, Spider-Man, and others in the past. Someone exclaims, for example, what an outrage it is that Marvel Comics has deconstructed Captain America to the point of making him a Nazi Hydra agent. Then someone puts on their condescending voice and says, "You're overreacting, these characters have always changed, it's what they do, this is just the natural progression of their story," and so on. There are a couple of problems with this every character changes argument. The first one is that in a debate like the one just described, it's a great example of a straw man fallacy. A straw man fallacy is when you misrepresent your opponent's argument in terms that set it up as though it were made of straw, easily knocked over or brushed aside. People make straw man arguments when either they can't or are too lazy to refute the specific points their opponent has just made. So they set it up as a straw man and often adopt a condescending tone in hopes that they'll sound more intelligent and won't be questioned about it. So how is this every character changes argument a straw man? Well, in the example we're dealing with, the first person doesn't express a problem with Captain America changing. He has a problem with him changing into a Hydra agent. The second person is trying to reframe the argument to make it seem like the first person is just against change in general, when that's not what the first person has said at all. Let's look at this first argument then to see what about this change is such a problem. And yes, this isn't totally hypothetical. I myself am appalled at the way Marvel is treating Cap and many of their characters in today's comics, just as I'm appalled at how DC treats their characters in their movies. That these characters have changed is not up for debate. It's a simple fact that Captain America has gone through many changes since his creation. He went from punching Hitler to joining the World War II team, the Invaders. He was frozen and brought back to consciousness decades later at a different time and culture. And since then he's found out that his old sidekick Bucky has been brainwashed into an assassin. He's been a public enemy himself during Civil War, and he's given up the mantle of Captain America from time to time to be Nomad or simply the Captain. These are just a few, but these changes alone run the gamut down to him even renouncing the name he's known and loved by, Captain America. Some of these changes have made him a little moody at times. Sometimes he's been a little reckless because of them. But the one thing that's always been intact throughout each of these changes is his basic character. Who he is inside, the values he believes in, the boundaries he sets for himself, and the traits that make him the Captain America we love, whether he goes by that name or not at the time. So how does Secret Empires reveal that Cap has always been a Hydra agent compared to those other changes? Well, it doesn't. The Secret Empire event isn't about Cap getting a bit emotional over an old war buddy, or giving up his mantle. It's about him committing murder, seeking world domination, and becoming a supervillain. These are core changes to his character, not just more of the usual events he's supposed to grow through. I've heard some fans try to defend his actions by saying that he's still trying to fight for peace ultimately, he just believes that Hydra is the means of accomplishing that now. To which I reply, how is that any kind of defense at all? He's become a means justify the ends type of person, which is a radically different character from who he's always been and what he's always fought for. Now I know too that nothing Marvel says this event is or isn't really means anything. It's absolutely possible that we'll find out this has been an alternate universe Cap in the end or some such nonsense like that, but that just makes for extremely poor storytelling. It's hinging on spectacle rather than tension and character development. Marvel's promise that all will be well in the end, if and however that turns out to be the case, has made the whole story arc an ends justifies the means plot, which is the worst kind. For Marvel editors, writers, and fans to defend it by spouting off a bunch of changes the characters and universe have gone through in the past is just plain irrelevant and speaks to a deeper ignorance regarding the way mythology works. Characters do change. Superheroes have become our cultural mythology, and that means they change in specific ways. A myth isn't just a story somebody writes and tells to people. A myth is a story that's told over and over again, and it's molded by the response of the people to whom it's told. As a result, the story and characters within it become what the audience wants them to be, what they need them to be. Look at Superman, for example. He was created with the ability to leap tall buildings, not fly. He was created as having crashed on Earth as a baby to be raised at an orphanage, not by the Kents. And in character, Superman was more akin to Spider-Man than the Superman we know today, more trickster-like with the crooks and corrupt politicians he captured. But as the story was told over and over in the comics and radio, changes were made. The ones that resonated with the public stuck. So Superman was raised by a loving couple, the Kents, in Smallville. He could fly, was susceptible to kryptonite, And most importantly, the powerful trickster fantasy of the teenagers who created him gave way to the inspirational fantasy the country needed, a symbol to fight for truth, justice, and the American way. And that's how the character has remained for decades until editors tried to force a change with the New 52 that they've since had to retcon. Changes to the core of who Superman is never stuck because the public said no. Now, the reaction time between the public's response and storytellers implementing that change is longer now than it was in the days of scribes telling tales around the campfire, because in addition to being a mythology, superheroes are also money-making properties. Editors and filmmakers don't like the loss of money that admitting a mistake causes. This is why DC tried to the bitter end to make the New 52 stick, and why they insisted that their Rebirth event wasn't a soft reboot as it's clearly proven to be. So in our Captain America example, this is why Marvel has buckled down on their deconstruction of Captain America, despite the fan outrage and the loss of sales. This is why they've begged readers to stick with them, why they insist that all will eventually be well, and why they announced their own supposed Rebirth-like event. The difference here, though, is that whereas DC seemed to learn a lesson by initiating the return to their characters' hopeful and iconic status, Marvel speaks out of both sides of their mouth, defending Empire and promoting Rebirth-like event at the same time. They've even released that Nick Spencer will be writing the Captain America title. So us fans who loathe the horrid deconstructions and want our iconic Cap back are supposed to be excited for a title written by the same guy writing and ardently defending this Hydra Cap run as still true to Captain America's essential identity. It doesn't take a genius to see that Marvel is afraid. Many of their writers and editors have become defensive children on social media as the company tries to be all things to all people. That's pretty much the opposite of how mythology works. There are some, of course, who like the Secret Empire event and enjoy seeing Cap picked apart. That's to be expected because hero deconstruction is still in vogue in our culture, though just barely. It's quickly becoming cliché, but the worldviews that entertain it, which often border on nihilism, are not willing to let it go quietly. The linchpin of this struggle over our mythology is the aspirational heroes that have served as our highest standards. If nihilism can destroy the standard, then lowering people's efforts to strive for anything will naturally follow. This is why we have a sad, insecure Superman and a Wonder Woman who gives up on humanity for a century in the DC films, and this is why we have a Captain America turned supervillain in the comics. Deconstruction isn't a phase or just a period of character development. Once a mythological character has been thoroughly deconstructed before a culture, there's no putting them back together to fulfill the same functions they did before. The fight then between iconic fans and the comic publishers and movie producers is to not allow these deconstructions to take root. We've won a solid victory with Superman in the comics. The Reborn event erased the moody and insecure New 52 Superman from existence. But there's still work to be done with Captain America and others. Superheroes change throughout the years, to be sure. But with mythology, it's the audience's job to ensure storytellers are paying attention to their reactions. That's all for this video, but stay tuned for more comic reviews and superhero analyses. Until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the superhero stories you love. Thanks for watching.